The garden is finally finished, so I thought I'd show you before she gets in there and does anything to it. Well, it's been a long, hot day out here, but this garden is done. There is the little fruit orchard up front. All those trees are doing really well too. So let's go see what's in this garden. The front of it has my herb section. So there's some oregano and chives. Some of these are just starting to come up, or I just planted them. So they're still pretty small. There's rosemary and parsley, stevia, sage, things that I really use. I've cut back quite a bit on what I put in there. And then over here is my flower section. So a lot of those are just starting to come up too, or coming back to life. Looks like some lilies will be up soon. Okay, here are my red onions. I have 2 sections of red onions. And then my yellow onions are over here. Here is the broccoli, and I think there's some cauliflower in there, and cabbages. Some of them are doing well, some of them have not. Sometimes broccoli does really well for us, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the weather, and since it was so cold this spring, I didn't even get this in the ground until maybe a couple weeks ago. And now it's been 86 today. It's supposed to be 90 all weekend, so we'll see how it does. Okay, I have peppers. I have all kinds of peppers. I have a few green peppers, but mostly orange peppers. I love those. And red peppers. I think there's different colored peppers. There's some banana and habanero, ghost pepper, jalapeno. All those are in there too. 2 sections of them. Swiss chard in my greens section. Collard greens. I actually found these as inexpensive plants and planted them, so they're way ahead of the game. Okay, so I have 2 sections here of greens. One is maybe a week or 2 ahead of the other side. And there is spinach in there, which is actually doing pretty good for once. That is very touch and go here. Then I have some mustard greens, which are really good. And those are, I think, turnips. There's some kale. Have some more little baby ones over here. Everything looks good. And these are the ones that I planted in that little tunnel, grow tunnel. My chickens got in there once and devoured them, but I think they've come back, so those are ready to do stuff with. In this raised bed, I usually do carrots and beets. So I do have some beets in here and some carrots in here. New carrots, they're just not up yet. These are my cucumbers. They are just pickle bush. I do the little pickling ones. Those are the ones I like to eat anyway and put in my salads, so I just grow those exclusively. Okay, here is my tomato section. And I have all kinds in there. I have a Cherokee purple or purple Cherokee. I have at least 1 or 2 of those. Some Brandywine. But mostly it's Roma tomatoes. I think there are a couple paste tomatoes in there. I mostly use those with some of the other kinds. And we just use them for eating, for canning. I freeze a lot. I like to do fresh during the summer. And then I like to use frozen, and then lastly we do canned. Canned is really not our favorite, but it's great for long-term storage. I do have 2 cherry tomatoes. I love those. The kids I work with love them too. I could probably do several and not have a problem getting rid of those. Here's a little row of celery that I did. Does anybody else do celery out there? Usually does pretty good here. I could utilize it more than I do, but I don't always get it out, but it's pretty good to eat and it's good to freeze. In my tomatoes, I have some little basil plants interspersed through there. Well, I did 1 planting of green beans and they didn't do very well. So I just have a few coming up. I transplanted a few over from the other sections. And then I also did a new planting. You can see where all those are. The catnip is right in the middle of the green beans, so I'm a little scared for the ones right by there. They'll probably get rolled on by a cat, but that's okay. And this isn't a real big section, but when all of my broccoli comes out, I'll be able to use over there too. So I do several plantings of green beans all summer long. And a lot of these things you can do several plantings. Just, you know, keep sowing the seeds every couple weeks and you'll have new coming up. This is my horseradish, which I love. But if you really want anything that's easy to grow and will just take over the world, plant some horseradish. You can battle it for the rest of your life in your garden. It's my compost pile and I have it dug out for the new stuff this year. Okay, there are my potatoes. And I have some Yukon, some Kennebec. I've got a couple red varieties and then I have the blue or the purple at the end. They all seem like they're doing good so far. And this is my garlic. This was planted last fall. And I planted this from garlic that I grew, that I harvested last fall, and then I put some right back in the ground. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how it does. And I also planted some in the spring. The garlic stays good all year. I'm still using it, but it's starting to get a little bit dried out at this point in the game. Here is a view of the garden from the front. You can see the chickens back there. Let's walk around the back. The raspberries are full of blossoms and ready to be blossoms. So this is the second year I've had this, and it looks like I have two kinds, and both kinds look like they're going to produce raspberries. So it looks like I might have a lot if I can beat the birds. And my little dog likes to come out here and try to eat raspberries if I don't watch her. And this year I added blackberries. Okay, asparagus, do you see it? I planted a couple of the little cheap bags of roots that you buy, I think at Tractor Supply, and I got several that came up. I've got 2 rows of it. So I don't know if I'm excited about that or not. I can't use it until next year, so we'll see. Anybody have any tips for me what I'm supposed to be doing with it? Do I need to put stuff in between it? I put a little bit of mulch stuff in between it. I'm sure I need to keep it weeded, right? Can I use straw to do that? Anybody have any tips for me? Now, to a gardener, we always see what will be, but sometimes when you look at this in the spring, you're like, well, what's the big deal? It's a bunch of little tiny plants. So in the description, I'm going to put a video to a little tour I did last summer that shows the garden when it's actually grown and some stuff going on with the chickens. So that'll be in the description if you want to see what my garden looks like when it actually grows. But let's go back and check out the back garden. So here is the back garden. And since it's in the back, things can just kind of sprawl and go wild. It's not a big deal. So this is where I tend to do my squash and pumpkins and stuff like that. Now this year, I do have sweet potatoes in here. And I just planted them. I think they came in last week. So there are 10 plants. And I've never done them in this back garden. They always do wonderful in the front garden. So hopefully they do well back here. And I just did a little bed of beets and some carrots over there. I don't know if they're going to have time to do anything before this other stuff overtakes them, but that's okay. I just have lots of seeds and wanted to throw them in there. Okay, here are my mounds with my squash and pumpkins. So I have 2 mounds of butter that have butternut squash, and I have some pie pumpkins. And I also planted some spaghetti squash this time for the first time. And the cushaw made it in. That was actually one of the reasons that we ended up tilling this, because I wanted to do more spaghetti squash and I wanted to try the cushaw. So there it is. Old School with the Modern Twist was talking about cushaw, and I happened to find some seeds at the store. So we'll see how that does. And then in this section is zucchini and summer squash. I can't wait for those to be done. I love those. Do you see that? That is the sunflower that I'm sure is going to win Sweet Iris Farms Sunflower Contest. Looks good, doesn't it? Well, thanks so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I hope that you have a great weekend and don't work too hard. I'll catch you the next time. Some of you have to deal with rabbits, But I have this kind of stuff to contend with in my garden. A fence would probably help, wouldn't it?